Well, it is the end of MSI Rumble stage with coverage brought to you by Alienware. I'm joined right now by BrokenBlade to talk about their escape from the Rumble stage. All right, BrokenBlade, what is the stronger emotion, feeling bad about 0-5 or feeling good about 6-0 versus NA?
I mean, it's definitely a mix of both, I would say. I mean, it's more so that the NA could have reminded me how it was 2 years ago, being 0-6, but it didn't. So I'm very happy about that. Obviously, it feels very nice being 6-0 against NA. But obviously, having those 5 losses as well was something that we didn't expect out of a sudden, when things were going so well as well. But I think we can actually take away a lot from these losses, or at least I hope. I think we did do a lot of mistakes that we just shouldn't have done, and that's something that's good if you don't do them again, right? So we're definitely going to forward to take these things with us,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I interviewed Yankos yesterday, and he seemed kind of like at a loss for why you guys had lost the 4 games before. I talked to him. Did you guys figure out what it was? Like, do you have any idea why it was that you went from like massive win streak to like crazy loss streak in such a short time?
I mean, I think I'm not 100% sure either, because I share similar emotions as Jankos did, I guess. But the reason could be that we just won so many games that we didn't know how, how it felt like losing again, and being able to reset. Obviously, also, we don't have much time between the games to reset as well. That could also be another reason, right? There's no real excuse of why we lost so many games in a row. I think we shouldn't have, especially against some of the teams that we played against. Just because I think we're on a normal day we're gonna win like almost 9 out of 10 games or 10 out of 10 games against some of these teams, and I think we just didn't play up to our standards. I think that's the biggest reason of why we just lost so many games.
Yeah. Well, do you feel like you guys have it back? Did EG help you guys out by giving you the win to help you remember how to win?
Uh, I think it was more so that we already made it through, so we could play with a lot more relief, I guess. I think like a lot of things were more loose. We even had a really crazy draft against the enemy team. I played Jackson mid lane. Cass played Gwen top, and the game just felt more natural. Like I think that's the biggest difference, I would say, from the games that we lost to the game that we won today. I think it just felt natural to play this game, and in the other games it just didn't. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What has been your take on the level of competition at MSI? There was an interview that came out yesterday with Vulcan, and I forget the outlet, but where Vulcan had said basically, it doesn't. It, compared to international events I've been at before, the level of competition feels a lot lower. And I'm curious if you feel that way facing all these different teams and maybe even being on this team.
I'm not really sure. I think in the end it doesn't really matter either. If it's lower or higher, it just depends who who lifts the trophy in the end, right? And I think it does feel a little weird, but I do think, for example, T1 as well, they are not playing up to their standards as well. I think the only team that actually played good throughout this whole tournament is RNG. They have been just very solid, throughout every game almost, and they always play the same way. They always seem to have like a natural flow of the game, and I think all the other teams are struggling right now when it comes to these kind of things, and that's obviously something that we have experienced now as a team, and I think we're really good at addressing those kind of things and learning from them, and hopefully we'll have really, really good and clean gameplay coming into the playoff stage.
Hey, one question that I haven't had a chance or I haven't seen too much discussion around so far is just what the scrim culture is like at MSI, or specifically like who you guys are scrimming. Like I'm curious if you guys are able to scrim teams outside of MSI, like if you're scrimming, Gen G or some of these other teams. I don't know how much you can disclose, but I'm curious if there's a lot of that going on.
I mean, obviously there's no one saying that you are not allowed to scrim other teams that are not participating in the tournament, right? We do scrim other teams as well, just because either it's good for scheduling or other teams don't have time. It's just a normal thing. I think there's no real reason of why we do scrim, we don't scrim certain teams. It's just if you find a good partner and both teams are down, we're just gonna scrim, right? So I mean, that's I think, and the scrim hours are a bit different. We're playing 6 games instead of 5, and it's 2 blocks instead of 1. So I mean, that's the biggest difference, I guess, and I think that's mainly because it was that way this year in Korea. I'm not 100% sure, so don't get me don't believe me to 100% here, but
Sure.
That's what I heard at least.
Has there been any teams that you've scrimmed against that have been very notable, or where you're like, oh man, it's so helpful to be able to have these scrim partners?
Yeah, I mean T1 and RNG, they were really good at scrims, and we learned so much coming in to this tournament, especially. We did scrim them a lot. Even though we didn't win many times in the beginning, I think we always learned every game, and every game was more of a challenge for them, I would say. And that's, I think, just the natural thing for international tournaments usually, where you come in and you play against other teams, and they like start just beating you. And I think it's up to the team that is getting beat to get back up and learn from their enemy team, or the team that is just performing better throughout more games than you.
I guess I meant, are there any of these teams out, like any non-MSI teams that you guys have been scrimming where you're like, oh, this has been really beneficial or have been good scrim partners? I ask only because sometimes at these international events, 6 months later, people are like, oh, we were scrimming X team the entire time and they went on to win Worlds and they were our best practice partner. So I don't know if you felt like there were any non-MSI teams you were scrimming that have been really great.
I'm not really sure. I think we've been scrimming some teams, but I think the one that actually stood out the most was probably XL. I think XL is a very good scrim partner, actually. I think they're always trying really hard to win the games, and they're always playing well, and they always seem to have a plan. I do respect playing or practicing against them. I think they're just good in scrims. So I mean, they're also bootcamping in Korea, so it's nice to have a team in the EU that also wants to help you out. Also, shout out to BDS, who helped us out for scrimming us and having warm-ups. So
nice. I know it's cool to hear that these guys are supporting you over there. I think finally getting back to this last stage of the tournament that you guys are coming up on. What do you think your chances are of making finals and potentially winning the whole thing?
I mean, you never know in G2. I feel like I think mostly it will depend on us now going back into practice 1 or 2 days. I'm not quite sure how many days we have right now. But I think the most important thing is that all the teams right now did not have any time to practice, and it will be depending on 1 or 2 days, preparing a good draft, preparing a good plan on how to play against a certain team, because now you will only play against one team, right? And going in with a good plan, it can definitely win you the whole best of 5. And I think us, especially Dylan, is really good at preparing those kind of things, preparing good drafts. Especially when we have a couple of days of practice to really understand deeply how our champions work together, how we have to play. And I think from there on, we can definitely win.
Well, thank you so much for the interview, BrokenBlade. Is there anything you want to say to any of the fans out there?
Well, I mean, it's been a roller coaster, I would say, for many fans. So thank you for sticking with us this whole time. Also for the NA fans still that are here with me and supporting me as well, because I was in NA as well for 2 years. So I'm definitely very thankful for everyone who's cheering for me and my team. And hopefully it will last for a long time.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for the interview. Best of luck as we continue on with MSI. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage right here on my YouTube channel. Hello, everyone. It is me, Travis. I'm staying up late again for MSI this year. Wow. I'm excited for when I get to finally travel to international events, starting with Worlds this year. But the cool thing is that I would probably not have the will to do this if it wasn't for Alienware supporting me, because it's late. It's very late here in California, and I'm tired. But it doesn't matter, because I want to get you this great coverage, and Alienware wants to support me getting you that great coverage. So thank you to Alienware for making this all possible, and I will stay awake with their support.